I think he usually just,
Could you knock on that door, see if we're ready to go? We good?
You're all set?
Okay, thanks.
yeah.
All right, good evening. This is the Nagog Hill Orchard Working Group, October 17th, calling to order at 7:35. We have a quorum. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Should we begin with, Sarah, you
Yep,
asked to
so
postpone the
in
minute
review
approval?
of the minutes, I had some things that I wanted to change and also add. So I would like to see if we could wait until I can submit
That's
those to
fine.
everyone
Okay.
and approve them at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Second item is review of the RFP, sharing the RFP responses publicly and talking to town council about it.
So I talked to town council, they were supposed to be redacted and posted on the website today.
Great.
I don't know if they were or not.
Okay.
I have not checked the website, so.
And then can we just recap one thing in terms of the last meeting, which I thought was really helpful before we get into this, is the thought that what this process is, so that we, in theory, can put forth a name, or numerous names or no names, but then the select board would go with our recommendation, but also it may be that there may be no leases, and then you would go to your MAPC that you have the funding for. So just, if you could just do that overview, because I think I got some questions
Yeah.
after that. If we can just take a minute to review that.
So my understanding of this group's mission is to, right now, is to review the RFPs on the criteria that were in the RFPs and recommend to the select board which one we feel is the best, based on those criteria. We also have the option of not recommending any of them if we don't feel that any of them are going to be the best and highest use of the property. I think we also can, outside of those criteria, just because we are theoretically subject matter experts on this property by now, include with our recommendation to the select board other information, like this is a really good candidate with some caveats that are outside of the criteria of the RFP, like, I don't know what,
Like lease to own, in terms of purchases.
That is one that has come up several times.
Yeah, and I
or-
think that, because it's not, we have to just remember it wasn't part of our scope in the RFP, and it stated that we're just looking at the APR land.
Right.
Yep.
But everybody indicated they were interested in
Exactly,
purchase, and
yep.
everybody indicated they were interested in purchase the house. So
Yep.
we should absolutely include that as part of our recommendation to the select board, but not as part of evaluating these
Right.
criteria.
Yep, so I think that's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
From town council, we're not allowed to consider a lease to own.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep,
And
that's
the
why I just
select board's
wanted that reiterated a second time.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the criteria before we dive in? I would like to, even though these have been released publicly, just refer to them as number 1, number 2, and number 4 in this discussion.
So do you want to clarify 3 versus 4?
Yes, I can do that. And the reason I want to do that is if I say something negative, I don't want it to be in public that I'm saying something negative about one of the applicants.
All right, so we should actually have a list of who they are.
Okay. And it's number 4 because number 3 was non-responsive.
Right. I think we should also acknowledge that,
So-
because,
So for clarity, at our last meeting, it was 1, 2, and 3.
yep,
After further review of the RFP respondents, it was determined that 3 was non-conformant, but 4 was.
non-conformant to the process.
Yes.
To the RFP process.
Yes.
Just for people that may have never gone through this before, just so they
Those are-
understand.
Is that cool? Is that okay with you
Yeah, it's
to
fine.
go that way? Okay.
It's, yep.
Okay. Are you 1, 2, and 4? Are you good on that? Okay. So I guess let's begin then in that case with number 1.
So,
You have very nice penmanship,
Oh,
by the
thank
way.
you very much. I worked very hard.
so
on that.
I just had a question on how you wanted to go through. Did you want to go through by criteria and how we rated them, or by applicant?
I think that I think it might be more effective to go by applicant. And then at the end, if we want, we can compare and contrast, like this one, the criteria. But I don't feel strongly about it. I can go either way. Preferences from anyone?
Well, I think, to be honest, to have a dialogue where you can't talk about someone's experience and their, their capital plans. Like, I have notes on each one, so I think to do justice to the three applicants that have put so much time and effort in this, I know it's going to be cumbersome for me to talk in code.
No, okay, that's fine. That was not my question.
Okay.
My question was, do you want to compare the criteria one is experience operating or managing a farm. Do you want to compare that across the board on the three applicants? Or do you want to go all four criteria on applicant one?
Gotcha.
All four are we going horizontal or vertical?
Wow. I don't know, as long as somebody tells me which we want to do. So,
Let's go one applicant at a time. And if you really would prefer to just state the name, that I'm okay with that.
we'll give it a whirl.
Okay. So let's start with number one.
Okay.
Who wants to begin? We can go by criteria, we can just,
So I think it's also, so for the people that are listening, they may not know what the criteria is. And
Sure.
so our weighted process of 100 percentage points, that this particular was 15% in its criteria number one, and it's called experience operating and or managing a farm.
correct.
And the total would be 15, I call them points, but they're percentages, but
Yeah.
I just call them points.
Points is good.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the second one is capital investment plan for equipment the respondent intends to use in the farming operation, up to 40 points.
Mhm.
Third is experience in licensing for pesticide application, up to 5 points. The last one is comprehensiveness and quality of the proposed management plan, up to 40 points.
Okay.
Okay, so let's begin with applicant number one. And whoever wants to start.
Doesn't matter, we just go around the horn.
Yeah,
I think
why don't
it's-
you start on
it's
this
easier.
one?
So I'm at 10.
Okay.
For experience managing the farm.
Any-
Or
you-
total.
Yep.
10 on experience managing farm. Do you want to expand on that or just go by numbers?
I think we'll just go by numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will?
Also a 10.
I put an 8.
I put them as a 10 as well.
Okay, so I'm the outlier there.
There's
Uh,
no, there's no,
averages out.
there's no outlier. We're gonna all be outliers at some point.
So then let's go to criteria number 2, capital investment plan for equipment the respondent intends to use.
I was at a 20.
30.
I was at a 20.
I was also at a 30.
Okay,
Could I ask you to speak up?
sure.
Yep.
Experience in licensing for pesticide application.
5.
5.
5.
5.
Comprehensiveness and quality of proposed management plan.
So I struggled a little bit with this because what is proposed, I mean, you can have really specific plans, and I struggle a little bit with this in terms of how it's going to be implemented.
Okay.
With that said, I would put a 30.
Okay.
It wasn't so much for me the implementation, but the completeness of the property on that one. Just the complete use of the property. So,
The lack of it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was, 30.
okay. I actually had this at 35. I thought this was a very comprehensive and well-thought-out plan.
I put them at 35 as well, but I also agree with Will
Yeah.
in that they aren't using the entire property, but they are using enough of the property
Yeah.
to meet, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, shall we go on to applicant number 2?
Hang on a minute. Let's start by going the other way around so I
Mr.
can get my notes.
Mr.
together.
Rombacher?
Yep.
So criteria number 1, experience in operating or managing a farm.
This one was kind of hard to actually, I gave them a 10 as well, based on one of their resumes.
So I gave them a 15 because I looked, that resume matched exactly, the acreage was the same. I thought it was spot on.
Are you making the assumption that that resume is going to be pertained to this part, this?
It was proposed as a farm manager who was in charge of operating the farm and
Okay.
growing things. So I would
Okay.
assume that person would be instrumental in
Yeah, that's why
running.
I was curious to
Yeah.
see if
That was my assumption based on the application.
Okay,
I'm also at a 10.
Okay,
I'm at a 10.
okay. Number 2, capital investment plan.
I gave them a 20.
Okay. I gave them a 10.
I'm also at a 10.
Okay,
Yeah, me as well,
okay.
10.
You guys are harsh graders.
Experience in licensing pesticide applications.
I gave them a 5 because it didn't seem like they needed pesticides in their plan.
So I went back and forth on this. I gave them a 3 with the assumption that they didn't mention it, but they also mentioned integrated pest management. But I don't know, maybe 5 would be more fair, given that they seem to have a good handle on it. So
yeah.
I'm going to retroactively change mine to a 5.
Without evidence of a pesticide applicator's license, I did a 0 on that.
Yeah.
They did explain in their plan that they were planning to be organic. They did mention the integrated pest management approach. But having been in the group for quite a while, with trying to get ahead of invasives and kind of get things generally under control, it's come up a number of times that probably starting with some kind of chemical control might be needed, and then shifting over to an IPM program or livestock or some other way of managing the invasives, but without a license,
So I think that's totally valid, and I think we'll just keep that in mind. Like, I don't think that that's going to be the deciding number of points, but fair enough.
I went with the 5 because if they're not needing it, or you can hire someone
Okay.
if they need it. Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, comprehensiveness and quality of proposed management plan.
I gave them a 20.
Okay, I gave them a 15.
I'm also at 15.
Yeah, I'm at a 20, and I guess for me, I struggle with, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, like meeting MDR's requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to make sure, so if you're leasing 48 acres, that at least half of those are really going to have revenue in the first year or two.
Yeah,
So that's where I struggled with my number.
but 20 ultimately is where you landed.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, I will begin this one. Criteria number 1, experience, I give 15 points.
Wait.
I did as well.
You did as
15.
well? Okay.
15 also.
Hold the line. Yep, 15.
Okay. Capital investment plan for equipment that respondent intends to use in the farming operation. I didn't see it in their application, so I gave them a 5 because there was some reference to working it, but I didn't see any specifics.
So I gave them a 35 because it sounded as if they already had all of the capital that they needed,
I'm in the same boat.
all the equipment.
Yep.
I might have read it wrong, but that's the way I interpreted that they had all of the equipment they needed.
That's my interpretation as well.
Is it?
Mhm.
What were you at, Will?
I'm at more of a 25. It looked like they had a comprehensive list of equipment that they intended to procure, but that they did not have the equipment.
No, maybe that was number
You're on
2.
You're on number 4.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
So I would be, I'm at a 35.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry, yes, I'd also be at a 35.
Okay, so I'm clearly the outlier there, so we'll come back to that. I must have, it's fine.
No, I can see the confusion because I thought about this. It's like, do you actually have to list everything when it's somewhat apparent that you own some of those?
So I'm looking at the application now, and I'm trying to, I mean, I understand that this person has an existing business, but I just didn't see, okay, I have all the stuff, I need to do it. So,
I think it was in the answers, it might have been in the answer to their questions too.
that is probably where I missed it. Okay, fair enough. All right, I'm gonna have to come back to that one. Okay. Number 3, pesticide applications, I gave 3 points.
I gave them a 5, but I could convinced on a 3 as well.
Yeah,
'cause
I
it
just,
didn't really
there
seem
was
like
no license, but they were clearly very familiar with the pros and cons of it.
I was also at a 5. I made the assumption that it
That
was.
they had a license.
Yeah.
I'm at a 5.
Okay. And then the last one is the comprehensive and quality of the proposed management plan. I gave them a 10 because there wasn't detail there. There was a lot of discussion about the general plan, but there was no timeline per se. There was no, I don't know.
I didn't get that. I'm at a 35 and I didn't get that vibe.
Okay.
I'm at a 35 as well.
Because if you look at page 1, hold on a second. Yeah, if you look at page 1. Like the 4th paragraph down. Specific to lot use. Like outlines what would go on
Yeah,
lots.
I see that.
Yeah, no, I'm in a strong 35.
What about you, Will?
35 as well.
Okay, so again, I'm an outlier. Okay. So I guess we could add up all these numbers and see where we're at. We're mostly consistent except for me grading too hard on the. Actually, we're remarkably consistent. So,
So when I went through and graded them, applicant number 4 scored the best, right? Applicant number 1 was slightly below. But then reading through the proposals, if I flip my hat a little bit on this, applicant number 1 is the one I would think we're most likely to be able to negotiate a lease with versus applicant number 4, because applicant 4 said explicitly in their proposal that they are only interested if we sell them the house and the barn, right? Which we do not have the right to do.
Ooh, that was the same as 2
No.
as well.
2 wanted a lease to own, yes. 1 would like to purchase the house, but isn't making an offer on contingent on the house.
And so,
So if we're just going for a good faith lease negotiation, 1 has a potential of being in lease negotiation. 4 isn't something that's viable without town meeting votes, effectively,
so,
the way they're written.
right, and I appreciate that, but the way that I look at that is you have to look at the criteria that was put forth for the RFP. You may have additional information, but people can change their minds as well. I look at it differently, that you come up with your strongest candidate and say, this is who we put forth, and that's what we were talking about, the caveat, could be that it may not work.
Right, I agree with that, but if we're saying it's the strongest candidate and we know it's not going to work, then why are we putting it forward?
Because people change their minds.
So,
we don't know what.
You could also have someone who's great and then decide they don't want to lease. So, and
Like we had.
right.
so
Yeah.
that's where I'm,
Yep. No, and
I mean-
I appreciate that. Yep.
So I think I'm with you on that ordering of them. I think that number 4 seems to have the most relevant experience for what they're proposing to do. Like, it matches up, it aligns well, and it is a well thought out plan to to use the site
In all of the site,
and all of the site.
Right.
with little or no cost to the town.
Right.
However, the lease negotiations could be outrageously difficult, or a
But-
non-starter.
So, and I appreciate that again, but the fact is that's not the mission of us, that's
I
you all.
agree.
What we're supposed to do is to put forth who we think is the best candidate, and then negotiation comes later.
I agree with you. I have a hard time sitting here with the two hats and distinguishing them, right? If I'm.
But today, you're not wearing your select board hat. You're an
Yes.
appointee of them, but yes,
Yes.
this is your,
But I could tell you that when I'm sitting on the select board, I'm likely to say that I'm going to potentially go against the recommendation because I don't think it would be fruitful. Because I don't.
you all said in numerous meetings that that the select board was gonna go with what we thought was viable.
So yeah. But you just said viable, and I'm telling you, I don't think 4 is viable.
But you don't
As the way
know,
they
you don't know
proposed it.
until you actually open it and actually
In
ask them.
2 things that they've said, they said only if they can buy the property, and we cannot sell them the property. So
They were not the only one that said that, Mark.
I
There were
realize
other
that, but
applicants
I
that said
thought
that.
I thought they preferred I thought 4 preferred the longest term
Yes.
lease,
Yeah.
but I didn't, and they were interested in purchasing
No.
it, but I don't think that they were.
4 said they were only interested in a lease if they could buy the house and the barn.
I'm only willing to engage in leasing the APR land if the town will sell me the house and barn. I cannot operate the farm without those structures at the core of the operation for sales and distribution and housing for farm laborers in the house. And then there's specifics about what to do with the house, codifying it as a multi.
So while I agree with you,
Yeah.
I'm questioning whether that basically disqualifies them as a valid candidate because we cannot consider selling the house or the
Why
barn.
can't you, in this bid process, have 1, 2? So if one says no, you have a backfall of 2. Why can't we put forth our
So
top
we
2?
can say that
Those,
That's what we talked about, that we would say, put forth your best, and there's gonna be a caveat to everyone.
so we could say that this is our preferred candidate and this one is also acceptable. Or we could rank them and say they're all acceptable, right? We can do that and the select board can do the negotiations that way. But if we're just putting forth a candidate that says, I'm only interested in this, I think it's a non-starter, right? Because we know,
I get a
By
sense
their
that
own words.
there's one other that is very strongly worded, that I want the land,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's true
And
as
so
well.
I think that it could come to the table that you open that bid and they're like, I really want the land. Like I said to you, I really want the land. And they too could back away.
yeah.
I just feel if we wish to put forth a name or no names, because it's obvious that everybody wants to buy, which was also part of the mission, was to find a good steward of the land and hope that we could, at some point, give them a pathway forward to owning.
So another option is for us to say to the select board, all 3 of these are good candidates. One of them is a standout, but we think it would be better in everyone's interest to sell the property to them and not go forward with this lease RFP and pursue with MAPC a sale at the next town meeting, going through another RFP for sale, and then follow that process as we did.
Certainly.
That is an option for us to do.
Yep.
And, I'm inclined to recommend number 4 to the select board and just say the caveat is,
Right.
because as Sarah said, like, we don't know what's gonna happen on the lease negotiations. Anything could happen. So,
I'm,
and I think it's the best thing for the orchard. Like, if it falls through, it falls through, but I understand where Sarah's coming from as far as it being the best thing for the orchard.
so the question is, I'm fine with saying number 4 is the top choice. Are we saying it's the only valid one? Or are we gonna say if lease negotiations don't go forward with number 4, if it fails, we go to number 1 or number 2? Or are we saying if it fails with number 4, we're going to sale? That's my question.
No, it's a great question.
So
We should discuss that, yeah.
let's discuss that. So I do have some concerns about number one. Like, I'm concerned about a lack of experience operating a farm of this scale. I'm concerned about capitalization. The people who are coming into this don't have an existing business. They don't have equipment. They have day jobs, I assume. There's no clear, obvious answer to the question of when they're going to spend the time. I mean, farming's a pretty easy part-time job, right?
Oh, yeah, just squeeze it right in.
Yeah, it's like you just do it in the off hours.
That's right.
So I think I'm.
He's here, isn't he?
Just wear it in.
Yeah, he's here, that's right. I'm
He's
worried,
taking off his jacket.
well, he's gonna go back and finish his job.
Exactly.
I'm just worried, I'm worried that they won't have the capacity to make it work. And it's, I guess, to some extent, a little bit more of a risk than number two, who seems to have both a larger band of personnel that they can draw on, and also, in my opinion, the best options at grants and free interest-free loans
Yep.
for capitalization.
Right. I think it comes to Mark's question, like, do we want to go down the path of coming up with one? And then if one doesn't work out, you go to MAPC and go through that process? Or do we go the path of going, here's one and two?
Yeah, well, so what's your opinion? Would you recommend number one if like number four had not applied? You are you on the fence, or are you like, no?
Because I want someone to take over the whole property.
Okay, what about you, Will?
I was going to say that there was a lot of despair between 1 and 4 because of the comprehensive plan for the entire property. Like, that's
That's the
precisely what we've been looking for, and that's sort of what's needed to move beyond the whole thing.
So-
If you go with number 1, you're gonna be having to go through this process again
Right.
for
And they wanted the shortest term lease.
for the whole property, except now it's only part of it. There's been a lot of discussion about, if there's gonna be somebody there, a farmer's gonna have it, you have to have the house. Now, I've been around and around that you could take the house, you could, do a couple different apartments and then, sell it with 3 to 5 acres or something like that. But having a plan in front of us that keeps everything together, with my understanding that that was not what was asked, and that's not what was being negotiated, or not available in the RFP. I think it's really difficult to compare those two. I just.
So the counterpoint, I agree. I think like the thing that I come back to is, it's almost like they're getting punished for being realistic. Like, they understand the scope of what they can accomplish. They're going at it in a very measured and detailed way, as their management plan says, with like rollouts of these different things over the course of several years, and they know that they don't have the capacity to take the whole property. So that's a good thing in terms of their management plan, but maybe you're saying, but it's not as good for the orchard.
If you go, yes, it's not as good for the orchard, and if you go cherry picking out the good
okay.
property, and then you're trying to, either sublet or additionally
Then you're
lease,
into like,
Okay.
then
the
you're
town
gonna,
did not do well.
you're gonna be
We would
paying
doing all over again.
a maintenance fee or.
Yeah, okay. What about you? Would you go with number 1 if number 4 had not? Would you recommend number 1?
I would.
You would, okay.
I would. I agree that, they have a lot of dreams, right? But I don't want to be the dream killer either, right?
But you also have to be fiscally responsible for this town.
Yes.
I mean,
But-
you have to have
I-
capital, you have to have access and experience.
Yes, I agree with all of that too, but it also, I don't know the outlay for the town was that great in number 1. There is some, right? The town is definitely spending money in all of the proposals except number 4, right? But it seemed like more what The proposal for one seemed more along the lines of what I think the town is expecting, right? Or asking for, or used to, or whatever you want to use the term, right? It seemed to be more fitting with the characteristics that were already there in the past. I thought, I thought they were biting off a huge chunk, and good luck to them if they can actually succeed. I hope they could. But, I assume that they went into this with their eyes open, right?
Yeah.
But there is significant removal of trees as well,
Yes.
There's also irrigation
That-
installation.
that you all have to pay for.
Yes.
Improvements
I
to-
understand their,
Yeah, so
number
I-
one had a cost to it.
I would say, yeah.
The only one that didn't have a cost to it was number 4.
So new pump for the well, cold storage is required, we'd have to make sure that was working, removal of all the trees in 2 of the lots. One thing I didn't understand is they mentioned one of the lots, which was not part of the lease, as a hayfield.
So that was one of the ones where they wanted the trees removed.
But
I thought
if
that
they're
was the
not
only one
leasing
that-
that, why are they talking about having it be a hayfield?
They wanted the trees removed so that they didn't contaminate the trees in
So,
the other
right,
fields.
so.
Yeah.
That's
like-
the only
so
one that
for-
I saw
that's
that they
field
wanted the
number 10
trees
for
removed
fire
from
blight.
by the town as opposed to doing it themselves.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then what about number 2? I guess that's my other question. Like, in the absence of any other applicants, would you recommend moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's less risk there. My question is, I come back to, can you come into compliance with MDR by not starting your farm straight away? I mean, it's a long process for what they have. Like,
I had a hard time with number 2 because there was not enough details to actually tell what they were doing.
I felt the same way, and
Okay.
I felt like,
I couldn't even tell if it was a vegetable field of, what their end product was, who their customers were, anything along those lines. It was just not,
Okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
see it there.
Okay, I guess I read between the lines a little bit more. Especially in the cover letter. But I thought it was a strong proposal.
so I think some of the great things about it was they mentioned they had a business manager identified. But there was no description of whether any of these managers were going to be full or part-time, whether they were going to be paid or unpaid. If they're paid, how are they getting paid? There was no mention of income from any of the activities on the orchard. They also talked about construction on the APR lands, which I think might be problematic
No, not for sheds, for outbuildings.
for greenhouses.
You can definitely put like animal sheds.
Yeah,
Things like
okay.
that.
I thought
There
it
could
was.
be something.
I thought that MDR was really, really strict
No,
about
you could
that.
put a run, I think they're looking for like a run-in for animals
There-
and that, so.
And they're strict, but something, a shed type of thing, or the tie tunnels or things like that.
Yeah.
There's, I think, special permitting
Okay,
processes.
okay. And like, there was no mention of whether this was how they were gonna make it the profit that they need.
See, that's the question, where's the income to meet even though it's a low threshold for MDR, how do we meet that threshold, or how did they meet the
So
threshold?
that could all be required in the lease negotiations. And there
Couldn't even
could be,
tell what they were going to sell.
right.
I mean, were they selling vegetables or were they selling meat? I had no idea.
Yeah, that's list, I can tell you what page it's on. I do like the vision of low and no-till farming, for sure.
There were a lot of great things about it. The sustainability, the infrastructure as far as partnerships that they had, all that's great.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, I couldn't find, I'm kind of with Mark as far as I couldn't really tell. There was also, but there were several references to food insecurity
Yeah.
or food security, but I didn't know whether that was the point of the crops that were being grown.
I got that thought, just in terms of that's the primary in that. So there's crops, there'll be farm animals for food as well.
Oh, yes, they talked about, yes. I mean, the poultry, beef,
Mhm.
then I
Yeah.
think they mentioned leather.
Yep, yep. Yeah, no, I think they could meet that, for sure. I do like community engagement.
So ultimately, if we go to the select board and say our preference would be number 4, and after number 4, what? Nobody? Number 2? I guess I'm looking for opinions from this group.
I wouldn't be opposed of going 4-2 and C.
Okay.
I mean, we still just have to remember everybody wants to own.
Yeah,
And so, I would have faith in the select board that they'll try and do what's best, or perhaps do nothing and wait and go work with MAPC.
okay. Will,
I mean, I guess I would be comfortable with recommending number 4.
Would you leave it at that and then kind of see what the town wants to do?
I'll tell you, I'm not comfortable recommending number 2.
Okay.
There just wasn't enough information in there for me to feel comfortable on what their
Okay.
plan was.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yep.
And I understand the qualms on number 1. I'm
Yeah.
fine if the group
Yeah.
decides not to recommend number 1. I'm on the fence on number 1. I mean, I think they have a vision. Whether they can achieve their vision is debatable,
Okay.
but
so I'm number 4, yes, and I would say number 2, yes, because the lease negotiation process will need to be, there will need to be a robust exploration of assets, personnel, and other items like that in the management plan as far as the lease, or it won't go forward.
I will also say 4 and 2 both required ownership. 1 did not.
Right. But
So-
again,
Yeah.
not our, I think that, I feel like it's not our problem to solve.
As
I
this
think
group.
it's more
As this
important
group.
to look
Our
at
problem, yeah.
Yes.
the whole property. I really want one
Yeah.
one steward to really have the one vision.
Yeah, okay.
And I would have preferred to have that as a sale, so that way we can help work them, with them.
So then the last question is, do we recommend none of them to the select board with the explanation that we think a sale is actually preferable to even attempt a lease negotiation?
I guess I just don't want it to be a long, drawn-out, convoluted, where all of a sudden, a couple months go by or longer than that, and then we're back to square one, and then we've already missed an opportunity to do MAPC and come to the spring meeting.
You mean if the lease negotiation gets
Right.
dragged
Yeah,
out?
I think.
So I think Matthew and I have already committed that the lease negotiations, we originally said somewhere in January, we either have a lease or we're done.
Yeah,
Right, and I'm fine with saying,
Right.
December
Because
31st.
honestly,
Right, I
in
don't
January,
really-
you have to be ordering everything anyways.
yeah.
So
So-
if you're gonna even attempt to have
And if
a
we-
short
If
season.
we begin with negotiations with number 4, we are going to figure out whether or not the sale is a deal breaker for them.
Right.
Is it just the sale of the house and the barn that that's in the,
Request.
the request, or?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they would lease the lower.
So the house we could sell.
I mean, is,
Well, the barn, you can move into MDR and you can sell that with the APR.
Well, we should figure out what we should do with the barn. That's a separate discussion that we should have. the barn should be protected. How it's protected, we should decide.
But it would be protected if you move it into MDR and you can still put a CR on it, or you can still put something else on it as well.
Right, but I don't know if you put it under MDR's control, if it still would meet the needs of any farmer that we're putting in there, versus putting a historical restriction on it. Might be
Versus putting what?
If we put a historical restriction on the barn as opposed to an agriculture restriction on the barn, I think we can do the purchaser, lessee, whoever, the farmer can do many more things with the barn than they could with a historical restriction, because you can say that they cannot alter the outside character in the historical, whereas MDR is going to say, you can't put in a farm stand here because it doesn't meet something. It's a lot more hoops for MDR than it would be for historical, I believe.
But they are willing to do it.
Yes, but we could also do a historical.
Okay.
And a historical can be in perpetuity. We can pick
Yeah, no.
the terms on a
Oh.
historical.
I think it's only 99 years, but yeah.
So do we have a consensus that we will recommend number 4 to the select board? With the proviso that we understand that there's a desire to own, and that we begin the lease negotiations, and if those don't work out, we can attempt the same with number 2. And that's what we'll bring to the select board on Monday.
But they can say yay or nay to 1, yay or nay to 2, or yay or nay to the whole process.
The board,
We don't
the
like
select
any of
board?
them, and we're gonna go to work with MAPC.
So I feel like in good faith, the select board will say, we accept your recommendation, or not, like, or nothing, or we don't think that this is the right fit for the orchard. I don't think that they're gonna say, well, we don't wanna take number 4, we wanna take number 2 instead.
Okay.
So I think that, like, I will insist that they either follow our
Promise
recommendation.
I won't vote against the recommendation here.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, and now that I think about the timeline, and it's just hard for me to waste another year. But I think if you go into negotiations with one, and that fails in the middle of December, hopefully it wouldn't, and then you're starting negotiations for another one, then you're looking at, you've already lost
Yeah,
that whole growing year. Because that's another month, you're into like February, March, whatever. So that would be my only hesitation of putting 2 names forward, is just the good faith.
it's like, get it, yeah, I understand.
But I think I would, because it could be a quick one and done. You open the bid and one says, nope, I can't buy. So then you're right on to 2.
Okay.
Sorry, I just talked in a circle.
Do you agree with that approach?
Of recommending
Of
2.
recommending 4?
I'm fine with recommending 4. I'm not sold on 2.
What about you, Will?
I'm comfortable, yeah, fine with recommending 4.
But not 2?
I appreciate what you're saying about the getting a much better understanding during the negotiations of the management plans, and that we're leaving it up to select board in good faith to make sure that the management is on par with what we're looking for, and that it's not, that you're gonna do some discovery there, and that it's gonna be an adequate, arrangement, but based on the response to the RFP, it's difficult for me to,
To say yes?
yeah.
Okay. And I'm like a cautious yes on it, so I guess we're split 2-2.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to do. We can say that, we can also bring that to the select board.
I think we agree to disagree, that we all agree that 4 is a strong candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's caveats that may not work, and that we think you all should, if that falls through, look at number 2.
Yeah, okay.
And, I guess you could come, no, I was gonna say you could come back to us, but.
No.
No. Okay.
And then that, or have a pathway that if 4 doesn't work out, they also have the lane to say, I think it's time to do MAPC.
Yep.
So we're not kind of like putting the board in one corner. Like there are pathways.
Agreed. Okay. Everyone comfortable with
So
that?
we'd have to make a motion for that.
So, yeah, so I need a motion to recommend number 4 to the select board with the caveats that were just discussed.
So moved?
Aye?
Well, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 4-0. Thank you all very much.
So, we talked about whether this would be the last meeting of the working group if we need,
We still have to do minutes
yeah,
for the last one, minutes for today.
yes. So there's that, and the other question I have is, and I don't think it's necessarily on the agenda for tonight, so I don't know how much we can discuss it, is we should decide what, if we're going to go the course of selling the house and barn or anything else, what restrictions we recommend be placed on it and start that process.
Right. So
Because I don't think
would
you and
like
I
to ha- yeah.
agree on that at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yep.
So,
I think that there's certainly an opportunity, I know everybody's busy with town meeting, but to have another meeting, to have that discussion, because I think it should be right of first refusal for whoever the lessee is, or if someone's able to buy the APR land, they should always have right of first refusal at APR prices for, say, the barn or whatever with the house.
The town should, or
No, meaning whoever the tenant
the
is.
lessee should?
so we cannot do,
I understand.
the only way we would be able to do
I'm
that.
talking about in the future.
Right.
But we could, what if we declared it surplus, leased it, and then we would be able to
So
sell
if
it?
we go to sell the house, just take the house, it's not part of the lease.
Yeah.
If we declare it surplus and go to sell it, we have to go through an RFP process.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Okay.
and the best you could do is tailor the RFP
So
so that the
round-
criteria somehow favors.
Yeah.
The person
current-
who's leasing.
Yes,
Yeah, and the committee's talked about that
Okay.
previously.
but then, yes, so, yeah, we could figure out the proper terms for that. I don't think anyone would be objection.
If the barn, for example, was put into 61A, the town would maintain the right of first refusal on that if that was to be sold, and then.
Right.
That's true, yeah. So that is a reason to put in the APR, right?
No, that's
You
different.
don't have to have it.
Or
have to
61A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that the
I don't know if we could move-
applicant has to do, the town can't put it under 61A. and keep
Correct.
it
Yeah,
under
we can do
61.
that, yeah.
So but if we wanted to put any restrictions on it, at some point, we need to arm wrestle those out.
Okay, so should we schedule another meeting in that case?
I don't think we need one in any time in the near
Okay.
future, right? Because we don't know what the status of the lease negotiations
Fair
would
enough.
be.
When do you all meet?
Monday. We're going to discuss this on Monday.
So it's on the, on
Yeah,
your
it's on the
Oh,
agenda for Monday, so we'll know more on Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay,
So I think our meeting can wait till like December,
okay.
honestly, so,
Do you want,
Yeah,
day before Christmas.
Rob?
public input? Yeah, please.
Fairgrounds, 25 Juniper Road. I don't see where the redacted proposals are available. I tried, I'm not saying they're not somewhere that I could readily discern. So with that said, I was a little bit, you did a great job. I tried to navigate through 1, 2, and 4, et cetera. Having said that, I'm a little bit concerned by what I thought I heard as potentially a disqualifying element pertaining to Ford's wanting to purchase the orchard by way of it would require a town vote. I think I heard that number one had aspects of requiring what I'm gonna, you didn't just say it this way, but what I heard was tree removal and irrigation. And if I heard that correctly and recalling it correctly, I don't think the select board has money available to them independent of a town vote to conduct that tree removal or irrigation, and hence I see that is similar to the concerns expressed with regard to you don't have the authority to sell it. I mean, to me, they're outside of your control, it's subject to town vote, and hence they're both rendered moot from the standpoint of how you consider them as opposing applicants. So I just,
So I understand that concern. I think the difference for me is that an article to allocate money for working on the orchard will be received very differently from an article which is to sell the orchard.
And there is potential of, doing reserve fund transfers or, select board slush funds for these things that we could work out.
Can we use CPC funds for this?
That I do not know.
well,
Okay.
I would just argue that if there's, I attended the meetings, it sounds like you're starting off with a 2-point-something million deficit with regard to the next year budget. So all due respect, but I think there are many, many competing priorities, and I would flip that with regard to, if you had the ability to do these things, then I believe the working group, and I can't speak on their behalf, but I've been trying to familiarize myself with their thinking, et cetera. I think they were all for get on with doing what you need to do in order to get some of the farmland in operation. And I would argue that one of the impediments with regard to proceeding with any type of work of the farmland during the most soon season was very much the aspect of you had no money to fix up the property the way it was believed to be used. So I find myself somewhat dizzy with regard to different arguments that are made as you're contemplating the decisions before you. I congratulate you on making the decisions, but I'm almost saying these remarks with an eye towards the select board meetings on Monday night so that there's clarity with regard to these issues, because I would hate to see what I feel is not clear influence the decisions and, the discussion pertaining to these
We were
items.
tasked with, I know for Will and I, not because you wear different hats, we were tasked with looking at these with the sole purpose of a lease. And so ultimately, I think if you can get someone in there that's a good steward, a good tenant, that we can still go forward with the proposal of a purchase and craft it so that hopefully the person that's there and doing a great job, we could help them buy it.
So
as
I
well.
embrace that completely. I just
I think that's
don't want,
fine.
I just don't want what clearly appears, I hear you say number 4 is your preferred, and then you're working your way to evaluate whether the other two applicants might be, able to be rendered, into a lease arrangement. I just don't want number 4 to be negated at the select board level as a result of apparently the application of number 4 saying they really want it with the sale. And so
I
that's.
come back to the premise that people can change their mind.
Oh, and
So you open the bid and see what happens.
And I accept, and I appreciate that 100%. I'm saying my remarks more towards the upcoming discussion of select board so that applicant isn't tossed on the basis of town vote, because while I hear what you're saying of transfer funds, et cetera, I view that as impediment, that there's been no signs of overcoming that impediment absent a town vote of funds being transferred and invested in the orchard for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more.
None of these were unicorns and rainbows, right? They all
Yeah.
had warts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're just picking what warts we think we could potentially live with negotiating for.
I offer it up in the spirit of trying to clarify and offer assistance, not to be adversarial.
No, I mean, it's fair, it's a fair criticism, and I think we will have to deal with that when we get to the select board on Monday night.
Thank you very much for your
Yeah.
time.
As a
thank you.
point of order, I forgot to add something to discuss. Can I add it as a discussion item right now?
Yeah?
So the work that was supposed to be done to tighten the buildings
Yes.
up has never been done. The
Oh.
only, to my knowledge, the only thing that I've seen as a passerby is that the no trespassing. There are still
Okay.
holes in the windows and such, and
I'll follow up.
the top building was never shored up with cross pieces, so. I'm
I'll follow up with Ryan.
hoping we didn't pay him.
Okay?
We owe them a lot of money, so
I mean, I offered to put the no trespassing signs up.
Okay.
they're we owe them a lot of money, so I'm pretty sure we can withhold a check.
Okay.
Any other business? If not, I'll take a motion. Oh, actually, yeah.
Kristen Kazokis, Littleton. I guess I just wanted to follow up because you had said that you would be able to give us information about what the proposals were. Can you give us at least the names or a little bit of description, or will that be available like tonight, or will that be available before the select board meeting?
It should
I
be,
think they were posted today.
They were supposed
Because
to
I
be
just looked at your
posted.
agenda on the website and they're not.
I don't know
up with
where
it.
they were gonna
They're
be
supposed to be
though.
posted under the Orchard Working Group site. I have not checked online today.
When we opened the meeting, that
Do
that
you
was a
wanna
question.
announce
I'm looking
right
now,
So,
yeah.
I know that, I think Rob was looking, but Mark was told that it would be posted today.
Okay, and are they notified on there as to which one is 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4?
it should be, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't,
Yeah, no.
wasn't here.
Yeah,
so-
well, and it was still a
I-
question whether it's been posted or
We
not.
talked yesterday about posting a redacted version so they don't have phone numbers and contact and all of that. And I thought they were supposed to be posted today, but I have not been online today.
I do not see them on our page, on the Orchard Working Groups page. I will also follow up with Ryan and see where those are.
Okay,
But they should be posted today. They should have been posted today. I'm sure they will be posted tomorrow.
okay,
And they should be, the numbers that we're using are the numbers that they had when they were submitted through the RFP process.
okay.
So that information should be included with the actual documents that are going to be posted to the site.
Is it possible to have them be a part of the, your meetings packet as well?
So we only post minutes.
Oh,
We
No,
don't
she-
have a
no,
packet?
You
No,
mean
she's
the
talking
select
about-
board
sorry,
meeting
the
Oh,
packet?
the select board packet, yeah, I probably.
Possibly. I don't know if the packet's been prepared yet.
I don't, I can ask that as well.
Yeah, because that
Don't
might be
your
a lot
packets-
easier for
Don't your
folks to
packets
be
go out
able
on
to
Thursday?
find.
They're either Thursday night or early Friday, so I don't know if
Okay,
But yeah, I bet you it probably won't be an issue to put the redacted ones in the packet.
okay, that would be really appreciated.
That would be-
Thank
Okay.
you.
That would
Yeah.
be really helpful.
I mean, it makes sense anyway, since we're discussing them. It's appropriate to have them in the packet. Okay. I'll follow up with Ryan on that
And
as well.
that's Monday. Do you know where that is on the agenda, time-wise?
Right after public input, I think. Sorry. Time to do too many things.
Will needs to go to bed, he's tired.
Okay, got it. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn at 8:32 PM.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.
Stay warm.